Today I'm going to cover it from a different angle, the process of enlightenment. And so I was contemplating about this and I came across it didn't have anything to do with spirituality, but it was interesting how I think I can apply this concept to why it's so difficult to achieve enlightenment in this life. So there's a concept of, well, nowadays, you young people, are not familiar with road maps because you're used to the GPS device in your cell phone or your car or whatever. But, you know, that you could apply that same principle to that. So let's say you're on the west coast of the United States and you want to travel somewhere to the interior to see some beautiful sights in a national park or whatever. There's no way to know how to get there, even though you know what state it's in. So you could fumble through the process by thinking, well, I know it's got to be somewhere in that state, but I don't really know where the state is. I mean, a general location I do. I guess I could get on the road and just start driving and do the best I can. Now, in many cases, you could drive until you die of old age, and you're never going to find the place because you don't have a road map, because you don't have a clue of which direction to go. You might have a good general vicinity of whether it's northeast, south, or west, but other than that, you don't have a clue of where you're going. Now, the issue with enlightenment is that it doesn't do any good to jump from this point to that point. So let's say this point is a normal, unenlightened person, and this person is an enlightened person. And let's say here you have a semi-general understanding of what enlightenment is, but somehow, magically, if you will, you were able to go from here to there. Well, if that were to happen, a person here could say, well, I'm enlightened now. You could say that, but it wouldn't actually be true because you have to go from here, and the journey is part of the process of being whole when you get here. So let's say you have a road map. Well, when you take out the paper road map, it's going to help you get there. But that alone isn't going to serve the purpose of getting from point A to point B. It just is a representation. So when you go through a forest that's 100 miles long, you can see the road is windy on the map, and maybe it's kind of indicated that it's green, and maybe it shows elevations and stuff like that. That's an interpretation, but the map isn't going to actually give you the information of what it's like to walk through a forest or to drive through a forest. Now, if you're in your car and driving and you never get out of the car, that's a much, much, much higher level of knowledge and information than if you were to just transport from here to there without any experience in between. The car will give you visual experiences and smells and the longness of the drive and stuff like that. But it's still not going to give you all the information of getting from here to there. But if you were to ride a motorcycle, those of you that have ever ridden a motorcycle will know that the experience is much, much more than driving. And the reason is because you're exposed to the weather and the smells and the temperatures. And if you're riding a motorcycle, you get on the motorcycle in the morning and, you bundle up and kind of cold outside. And you start riding the motorcycle, and as you're going up and down the hills and into mountains and twisty windies, and you get down to the lower level where maybe there's a little river that you're riding along for a while, you'll notice, along the way there's patches where it's just colder than heck, and it might last for 2 minutes maybe, and then all of a sudden it's like 20 degrees warmer. Well, you're never going to notice that in a car because you've either got your heater on, your air conditioner, or whatever, and the windows are rolled up. You might go through an area where the smell is intense. When I say smell, I'm not talking bad smell. I'm just talking about the smell of the desert or the forest or whatever the case may be. If you were to ride a bicycle, that's a much slower pace, and you're going to gain even more information. If you were to walk the entire distance, you're going to get a different perspective of the path. So what I'm saying is you can't circumvent the process. A lot of people want to be enlightened that learn about it. In other words, your awareness initially when you start on this path is, I don't even know what enlightenment means. It's like, what does that mean? And then I'm talking about what's typical. And then as you start becoming aware of maybe a guru or spiritual teacher or whatever, and they talk about enlightenment, and you go, wow, well, that seems like a desirable thing to have, be, experience, whatever the hell it is. That's something that, and then as time goes by and by, what you're doing is you started on the path. You started off with hearing about this location, and then you got a road map, and then you've started on the journey. And a lot of times, it's very common, you might be on a 1,000-mile journey to enlightenment, and you've traveled 10 miles on this 1,000-mile journey. And you go, wow, this is quite the journey. I think I want to wake up tomorrow and be enlightened. Well, you can think that all you want. It just isn't going to happen, because there's no way to be enlightened without covering that entire journey along the way. The experiences needed and necessary to be able to, when you are enlightened, to be able to make sense of all of this stuff. I was just listening to a person talk about enlightenment this morning. I was watching a YouTube channel that someone asked me to look into. And so this guru was talking about enlightenment, and he was going off on a tangent, speaking about different levels of awareness and everything. And, excuse me, and everything he was referring to was indicating that he was not enlightened, because he didn't know what enlightenment is. He had no way to identify, and so he was referring to the physical reality. His knowledge of enlightenment was a heightened awareness of it, but without any of the actual experiences and knowledge. So he wasn't able to help the people he was teaching other than helping them to be more aware of what enlightenment is. And the nice guy, he thought he was doing a great job, but there's no way he could help. He didn't travel the full journey either. And you could tell that when you listen. Well, at least I could. So I'm going to come up with another bizarre, crazy thing. When I say bizarre, crazy thing, I'm kind of on the fly coming up with this stuff. But if I were talking to you, so far, you've heard my voice, so far, meaning in this particular video right now. You understand what I'm saying. But if I were to start talking differently by going ba ba da da, well, from what I just did, nobody would know what the hell I was doing. Nobody would know what I was saying. Nobody would even know what I was thinking. But let's say that crazy outburst of noises and mannerisms and hand movements and everything, let's say that in my mind, the only person would know would be God, because between me and God, because what it meant was I was looking at a somewhat rounded vase that holds flowers. And that's what it means. Well, you could take those mannerisms and noises and everything that I did and put them in the most supercomputer that ever existed and spin that supercomputer for 1,000 years, and it would never spit out that it is a round vase with flowers. Unless I did that numerous times, and then you analyze, like, why is he doing that? What does that mean? And then you finally put two and two together and go, oh, he's looking at a vase every single time. And, oh, a vase with flowers in it. Okay, and every time he looks at that, he makes that weird thing. Well, then you'd know what I was talking about. But up until that point, you don't know, because you haven't experienced. Now, when I say the vase with flowers, I'm of course referring to enlightenment. You have experienced vases with flowers. You have experienced everything that I talk about, which is why the words mean something to you. Because every word that I've used, you understand the meaning of the word. Well, when we speak of enlightenment, when I say we, I'm talking about enlightened spiritual masters. When we talk about enlightenment, we're talking about something that you've never experienced before. We're talking about something that requires you to take the entire length of that journey and experience everything along the way to be able to make sense of what enlightenment really is. So there isn't anything I can do or say that will convey to you what enlightenment is. Excuse me. But we can, when I say we, again, people that are enlightened, when I say we, teachers from thousands of years ago wrote things down. So, I mean, it's the same thing. You're listening to words that are going into your head as you're reading, and it's the same process, whether it's dead or alive. The only difference between a dead enlightened master and a living enlightened master, the only difference is that the living one can answer your questions, whereas the dead one can't. Now, that's not entirely true. For instance, you could worship Jesus the Christ, for instance, and maybe through a process of decades gain some sort of a relationship with this individual, Jesus the Christ, through visions, revelations, manifestations, whatever the case may be. And if you're privy to becoming close on a spiritual plane of existence, you can actually communicate with and get a two-way communication with this being the same way as you can with Brahma, though that is incredibly rare. And so it's much easier to find a living enlightened master to be able to communicate, two-way communication. But that's how you're on the path and you're looking at a roadmap and everything, and you got questions like, well, the road splits in two, and I don't know which road is the best road to go. And it's very possible that the road to the left, it says it goes there, but doesn't really go there. I mean, I might travel on that road for a week, and then it comes to a dead end. So I don't know. But if I ask a living enlightened master, he'll tell me, oh, that's a dead end. You can go down that road if you want, but it's going to be a dead end. And so obviously you wouldn't take that path. You would go the other direction. So I'm going to get off on another tangent that is similar because I just thought of it as I'm talking to you. Years ago, it was probably not quite 30 years ago, but 25 years ago maybe, I don't remember. But I partnered up with another Boy Scout, Scoutmaster, and I was working as a Scoutmaster, but I would say a poorly qualified Scoutmaster. Nevertheless, I did, and so I taught, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 Boy Scouts. And so neither me or the other Scoutmaster were very familiar with reading maps, meaning hiking maps in the woods. And this was in Oregon, and we went on like I think it was supposed to be like a 4 or 5 day camp hiking thing. And we were going through, it might have been a section or a path of the Pacific Crest Trail. And so I think it was the second day of our hike, maybe. We were camping, and what we did is we decided, well, here's the trail. Let's go about 150 yards off the trail. And we were kind of toward the top of, one of the mountains. And so we camped. And the funny thing is you could see the trail that went, and without actually walking on the trail from our campsite, we could see that the trail went, and then it went to the left. And so when we woke up the next morning, we gathered all our stuff and put our tents and our backpacks and everything else. And we thought, why walk 150 yards back to where we left the path when we can see clearly if you go at, let's say, about a 40, 45 degree angle from where we went, we could see the path over there. Now, unfortunately for us, that wasn't the right path. I mean, it just wasn't the right path. Now, we had maps, and we had compasses, and we had all the stuff to, let you know where you're going. But we circumvented the actual path by cutting out about 150 yards of the path. And we got on it and we hiked for, well, half the day until it came to a dead end. And luckily, one of the Boy Scouts was extremely well versed in maps and compasses and everything. Me and the other scoutmaster, we were semi-versed in reading the maps and everything. Honestly, we would have probably just reversed and went back up the path to find out where we got off the path. But what happened was one of the Boy Scouts was so good, and by the way, he earned his patch for whatever it was, navigation or whatever, because he sat down and put the compass on the map, and you turn it and you could see a mountain over there and 20 miles away, and you could see a mountain over there. And we looked at the map and we go, you know what? We don't have to backtrack. We can actually just forge our own path through the woods where there's no path whatsoever. And we did that. And we came back to the original path probably an hour and a half later or 2 hours later or whatever the case may be. And we kind of had to do that in another area too because the path was covered with snow. So there was no way to know where the path was. And so we had to travel just basically looking at the map because the path was covered with snow. And we did that. So that was an experience that has stuck with me today. The actual going from where we started, we got out of the cars, to the point where we ended up several days later, yeah, you could go from here to there, but the experience in between, which is the process of enlightenment, I would never have had. And so that's what I'm talking about with enlightenment. You are on a path. You are being guided by your own intuition, and if you pray to God, that's fine. There's some assistance there. But this path that you're on is difficult, and you can't circumvent it. And so when you get impatient and you think that you want to go there, there's nothing wrong with that, but just recognize you can't circumvent the path. You might be able to jog certain distances, and some people are more capable than others, but you have to be on the path. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk about that is you remember that several minutes ago I made that crazy sound and hand gesture, and I said it represents a vase with flowers in it. Remember that? Okay, well, that crazy sound and hand gesture and everything is no different than the word Advaita. And the word Advaita was invented or created or spelled out by some enlightened master thousands of years ago. And as a way of communicating what enlightenment is, he coined the term Advaita. And so it's a much deeper meaning of enlightenment because it also contains the concept of individuality, of the essence and the soul, and the concept of Brahman, the uncreated darkness of nothingness, And so when that original person coined the term Advaita, he used that word, or she used that word, whatever the case may be, between other enlightened masters. And they would go, well, for instance, how are you going to teach Advaita to your new students or whatever? And so what has happened is, I don't know for sure, but maybe Advaita is a word that was altered from 20,000 years ago, or it became termed as Advaita. I don't know. Maybe it was just held over as a word because they didn't write at the time. I don't know that either. But what I do know is some 100,000+ years ago or whatever, we were in an enlightened age where literally everyone was enlightened, or almost everyone was enlightened. And as time changed, the different yugas of time, and it got more evil and darkness, etc., as a way of communicating between enlightened individuals, they would use the word Advaita. And as I'm saying, I don't know if the word was Advaita, but it is today. But that's the way they would communicate with each other. And now in the Kali Yuga, the Dark Ages, people go, well, Advaita means not two, so therefore it's non-duality. Well, that's the dumbest ass thing I have ever heard in regards to spirituality and everything, is people reducing that word to such a moronic level that even a monkey could understand, and it doesn't mean what people think it means. It does not mean non-duality, but that's what they interpret it to mean. They've convinced people from eons that Advaita means non-duality because it's something simplistic. But the thing is if you've never experienced the full encompassing ideals of enlightenment, because you never walked the entire path, you don't understand. Advaita doesn't mean non-duality. It only means non-duality to the ignorant fools that assume that on the first day of their journey they know what enlightenment is because someone told them Advaita means non-duality. No, it doesn't. It's like me making those noises and everything, and it represents a vase with flowers. Well, you know what a vase with flowers is. But what if I used, instead of those noises, I used the word Advaita? And it means fully enlightened. Well, fully enlightened isn't something you can relate to because you're not fully enlightened. So no matter what I say, I can say the word Advaita, but you're never going to know what it means. You can throw it into a supercomputer and it's not going to know because it hasn't experienced the entire path and then arriving at enlightenment. When you arrive at enlightenment, it is instantaneous. It is something that does not fade with time. You don't lose track of it. I mean, so many people, misguided people, have said, well, you're all enlightened. Don't believe any of that. It isn't true. Not everyone is enlightened. In fact, I doubt there are, seriously, I would highly doubt that there's 10 people on the planet Earth alive today that are enlightened to the extent that I'm talking about. One thing that I have talked about that I would advise everyone along the path is I would advise you to build some sort of a relationship between you and God, either between you and Jesus the Christ or you and God. I can't say Krishna because Krishna was too far back to really know the character traits. Maybe if you had a one-on-one relationship with Krishna through the spirit realm, you might be able to gain the knowledge of God, which destroys the concept of non-duality. But I suggest that you build some sort of a relationship with Jesus the Christ is the best one, Brahma, but that is extremely rare. But the reason I say build a relationship is because when you're on this path to enlightenment, it's a really good idea. It is a really good asset to have that relationship. When I say a relationship, I'm talking about a two-way relationship, not just you praying to God and you never getting answers or whatever. I'm saying a two-way relationship where you actually do receive feedback from God and you know it's from God. That might take a lifetime to get, of course, but so what? And the reason I suggest you do that is because when you go along this path and you finally do become enlightened, I find that to be absolutely crucial, because enlightenment without that asset of oneness with God, you are going to be lonely. You are going to be, well, first off, you're going to have that experiential asset eventually anyways. So why not do it along the path, which makes spiritual enlightenment so much more enjoyable? Because without it, you are alone. And unless you're a type of person that can be okay with being alone, and when I say alone, I mean like utterly alone, like non-duality alone, like you don't exist alone. I mean, that most people are not able to survive that type of condition in existence, because once you're enlightened, it's impossible to revert back to your old life where your existence might have been tolerable. The last thing I want to talk about is, I don't know what percentage watch these videos that are depressed, but there's a lot of good people nowadays in this Kali Yuga that are depressed, seriously depressed. And I get that, I understand that. There isn't too many ways to solve that problem. You can delve deep into spirituality and everything, but that's not going to solve the problem of depression. Depression along the path is typically the result of living in hell, living in this reality that we live in right now that is hell. And unless you find a friend, unless you are able to work with others and have some sort of a relationship, it can become overwhelmingly depressing, because the world is so evil nowadays, because you are repressed so horribly and bad. Evil people and demons run the planet from top to bottom, and unless you can find a niche somehow with other friends and focus, redirect your depression away, find a hobby, something that you really enjoy, find some sort of hobby yeah, the depression won't go away. And you really need that depression to go away. I don't want to put pressure on you because that just creates more depression, but you need to find joy and happiness along the path, or you're going to get stifled and bogged down. And yeah, that's not a good thing. So if it helps you, I think that's my number one reason why in all of my videos I try to express my love for you. And I do. I love you with all of my soul, with all of my heart. Not because of anything you have personally done that has benefited me or whatever the case may be, but because I've seen the future well into the next kalpa, if you will. And the friendship that exists beyond this reality is phenomenal. And so that's why I say I love you. And I would hope that that would build some sort of faith in you to keep going, to recognize that I really am your friend, to recognize that you're not probably going to get the evidence in this lifetime reality that I'm your friend, but I guarantee you that you're going to get the results of my friendship, because I get the results from your friendship for me. I mean, it's not like I benefit because you give me something. I benefit because I give you something. You benefit because you give me something. That's how love works. And so the reason I say I love you is because I know in the eternity of things, you love me. And that is what makes, if you could glimpse a little piece of that, the depression would evaporate. And then when you catch a glimpse that God feels the same way about you, the depression evaporates. That doesn't mean you're going to escape the things in this reality realm that would normally cause depression. You're not going to escape that. We're all going to go through this, and all of us are going to die one way or another. This isn't our home. This isn't our place of reality. This is just an illusory dream that we are coexisting with Brahma. And when this dream ends, so does everything here end. That doesn't mean we end. We're not a dream substance. We're not this. We're not physical beings. We're much greater than that. We are what creates this. Whatever creates this is greater than this. And this is what we are creating, co-creating with you and everyone else, including Christ and Brahma and Satan and everything and everyone. Anyways, I'm going to close. I love you. I think I'll make one more video before I take off on a probably between 2 and 3 weeks trip with my older brother. I'm going to try to take a lot of video and stuff of him and I and my other brother we'll meet up with in Oregon. I'm going to try to do that and then show you that video when I get done with the trip. I'm hoping you find it to be interesting. My older brother is not anywhere close to what I am at or what I talk about in spiritual terms and everything. He's much more carnal and stuff. And so you probably see a side of me that you've never seen before because I will interact with my brother. And hopefully my younger brother, who is extremely spiritual, but in a different way, hopefully we'll have some video with him. And like I said, I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but I'm looking forward to it anxiously. I think it's going to be something extremely fun. It's going to probably cover probably a 3,000-mile trip over the course of 3 weeks-ish, maybe? I don't know. Anyways, I love you, and I will talk to you later. Bye.